Or do they? There we go. All right. Topic, Mary Beth. I think you have a topic for us to begin with.
Yes, well, a member of our group, Leslie, she suggested what I thought was a really good topic. And the topic is about memories because people have memories of when their most precious person was physically focused. And oftentimes they're told to just forget the memories and move on. The memories are in the past. That's done, over and done with, and move on. That's one aspect that people grapple with. The other thing is that when people think of their memories, it triggers the grief. And so I think it would be helpful for people, hopefully helpful for people, if they understood how the memories can really support them in their transdimensional romance and how they can use them um, not only as beautiful touchstones to help them connect with their lover, but also as a way as a springboard for making new memories with them.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. The only difficulty with that is a lot of times those memories trigger the grief.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons that our group is really about helping people move through the grief and get kind of to the other side of it where they have better access to some of these things or easier access, less painful access to their memories, to music, photographs, videos, recordings of the voice, of their voice, because those are what we call portals, little portals into connection with our partners. And just on the other side of that, which you can usually kind of feel a little bit of, like if you go into a memory, there is a uh, heavily weighted towards the bitter, but there's this bittersweet sense to it in the beginning. And that sweet part is, your partner. So yeah, if it's there's a lot of advice that people get, a lot of information and advice that people get from all different kinds of sources on this. Some of it's secular, some of it's spiritual, some of it's religious. Um, that I don't know. I in my experience over time is that it's it's very rarely good advice, and it's very rarely good information. Like one of the common tropes was your grief blocks them. Well, in this group, we found out your grief doesn't block anything. It doesn't block you from connecting with them. It makes it difficult to get. In other words, the only reason, in my opinion, it makes it difficult is because the grief just kind of drowns out a lot of it. Like we were talking about with memories. I mean, you can get into a really good connection with your partner in a memory or a photograph, but the hard part is that, like, in the beginning, 95% of it's grief. So that makes it a little bit difficult to access that part that's just them and your sweet connection to them.
The other thing about memory that I've heard is that I had a little bit of an advantage because I I hadn't before Paul passed, I had not, done a deep dive into afterlife studies or anything, but I had enough knowledge to know that he lived on, at least that. I didn't know, how he lived on. Was he I don't want to go off on a different topic here, but I didn't know like how he lived on. Would he look like himself? Was he a puff of smoke? Was he I didn't know any of that. And that was a little freaky. But what was really what I hear people suffer with when it comes to the memory thing is they think not only have they quote unquote lost their person, but they lost all of those things in the past that they shared together that were so special and precious to them. And they lost the ability to have those things in the future. So for example, like around the holiday time, if for people who celebrate different holidays, they dread those because, oh, this is the first Christmas without them. This is the first birthday without them. This is, and so the thing is that they feel that all those memories that they built up and all those special connecting times have vanished and they're gone forever. And when I learned more about the afterlife and read tons of, like everybody does this, you read tons of afterlife books and listen to recordings and all of that stuff. I found among them, you have to sift and sort because a lot of it doesn't resonate and a lot of it's really scary and painful. At least it was for me. But what the resources that I really liked were the ones that said that whatever you celebrated, enjoyed, luxuriated in, loved doing with your partner together, all of that is not gone. It's it can be you can do it again over there, and it's even better. And so, and also when you're celebrating something, like say there's a family celebration, a birthday anniversary, it doesn't even have to be related to your partner, but it could be, I don't know, just a relative or a friend or whatever, and you're invited to some celebration. They are there too. They're right there. And so they're celebrating along with you. And I know it's not the same as when they're there physically. But when you can get on the other side of grief, it's really even better.
Yeah.
And so people don't have to worry that their memories are gone forever. Nothing and no one we love is ever lost to us. So when you can get to a point where you think, oh, we really loved, I don't know, going to the museum, you can do that again. And it'll be exciting to do again. And you can talk to your partner about memories that you want to recreate together. And that's really exciting. And for me, when I do that with Paul, when I talk about, oh, I can't wait to do this again with you, I know ways I can make it better. And this time, here's what we'll do, and it'll be so exciting. And so it becomes a source of joy, really.
Yeah.
It's not worrisome or sad or, you know, dripping with grief. It's something when you get to a certain point, and one thing that helped me, this is the last thing I'm going to say. One thing that helped me was when I heard this from different unrelated sources, from sources that had nothing to, people and authors and different entities had nothing to do with each other in history, but they were saying the same thing. And that was really very comforting to me and very encouraging to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard, I think one of the great pieces of information I came across from, like you say, multiple different sources was that when you die, you have this much greater memory capacity. And you not only can perfectly remember any moment or event in your life, you remember it better. It's, uh, it's, there's more sensory input, and it's not like you're remembering something. It's like you're there experiencing that thing again. And one of the additional pieces of information, again from multiple sources, is that you can do things differently than in other words, you're not just rewinding a memory. You're there. You have agency there, and your partner can be there and have agency there, and you can do things differently. I mean, you can revisit a memory as many times as you want and do things differently, and just enjoy that space and that time together as often as you want. So yeah, that's really that's one of those things where you get this information from certain sources, and it could even be the same source, and it often is like conflicts with each other, and you're wondering, well, what's the story here? And I think a lot of it is, again, some type of spiritual ideology or something where they think that's not a good thing to do, or they think that that type of thing doesn't really get you advanced on the ladder of success or whatever. So, uh, yeah, that's one of the great access points. One of the great portal points is memories. Like I was saying, photographs, music, um, videos, all those things that in the beginning you're kind of scared to do because of how much it's going to hurt. But if you work your way past that, those are great access points to where your partner is, not where they were, but where they are now and where you can access them now. And so the other thing that we were kind of discussing in Zoom yesterday was whether or not people are doing things right, which kind of follows this a little bit, whether or not they're pursuing their communication and interaction with their partners the right way, and also if they're doing enough or not doing enough. So, would you like to address that first, Mary Beth?
Well, yeah, I think I now you can stop me if I'm wrong, William, but yesterday in our regular weekly Zoom, um, we were talking about that, but also in relation to whether or not people are doing not only doing it right, but doing enough. Doing enough. They're interrelated. Yes. Okay. So you pointed out in the Zoom, yes, and I've worried about this myself because I think I do a lot, except I was thinking about this morning. I think I do a lot, but then I compare myself to someone else. And I think, well, they're really doing way more than I do. And I try never to think of things negatively, but I don't want to take Paul for granted. I mean, when he was alive and well before he became ill, we enjoyed a fabulous romance. But I know I took him for granted. I never thought he would become ill and die so young. I just never thought that. And so I don't want to get to a place here in our transdimensional relationship where I'm taking him for granted and not doing enough. But you pointed out this really wonderful thing about first of all, of course, everybody has different lifestyles. Some people have children to tend to, or they have full-time jobs, or, this, that, or even more than one job, and this, that, and the other thing. A lot of things are pulling on their time. And you said something that was so wonderful, and it spoke really right to me, is that it's also everything counts, even the little things. And I was noticing, I'm no, ever since you said that yesterday, I was noticing all the different things that I do. And this morning, when I make my breakfast, I have like a English muffin that, the kind that you stick the fork in and you have the two halves, and I toast it. And every day when I pull it out of the toaster, I like to put honey on it. And so I put it on I squeeze it for my little honey bear. I squeeze it and I write P for Paul on one side and M, for Mank, his last name, or it could be M for Mary Beth. And it's such a little tiny thing, but it's a way to honor him it's just sweet. I know he would find it amusing and sweet when he was physically focused. If I would make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I used to, or I don't know, a hamburger or something. I used to take the mustard and draw hearts on the food. And he always, or a smiley face, and he always thought that was fun. So that little teeny tiny thing is important, I think. And maybe it's not, I don't know if it's even worth saying, well, yeah, but this other thing, like if you really meditated and visualized and spent a half an hour every day, I don't know if one is better than the other. I don't know. What do I know? Not a whole heck of a lot. But ever since you mentioned that, I do notice that I do a million little things throughout the day to show my love to Paul. And that made me feel better about myself. I'm always looking for ways to feel better about myself.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been thinking about this too, and that's one of the things I want to do here is apologize to the group because if anybody is guilty of making other people feel bad about whether or not they're doing enough, oh my God, it was me. That wasn't my intent. But you know, when I'm telling people that I'm visualizing hours a day, several times a day before I go to sleep and after, and sure enough, I was doing all those things. But it's like setting up this. I mean, it cannot help but put other people into that framework of, well, I'm not doing as much as him, or I'm not doing as much as somebody else. And because I've said things like, and I've thought these things, and I kind of incorporated them into myself is that if I really believed that I was really talking to Irene, wouldn't I be doing it? That we were really having these experiences in our imaginarium and that they're real, would I be doing it all the time? And so what I what that discussion made me realize, what really made me realize that was somebody in the group said something about whether or not they were doing enough, and it made me think about it uh, even before the regular Zoom group yesterday. And I realized that in my own understanding of how all this works is it's really the constant thing, the constant intention, the constant sense of love, the constant, like you're talking about when you stop and you think about it, how many times do you think about your partner with a loving thought? How many times do you talk to them? I might be scrolling on some social media, but I'm always like talking to Irene about it. Look how funny this is, or look at these two people or whatever. Or how on earth did they do that? And I'm talking to her, and that's that's the ongoing constant attunement of yourself with your partner. And basically when your partner dies, you're just kind of plunged into the no taking for granted constant attention to your partner, even though it's painful. That's what you're doing. It's an ongoing constant attention. Your manifestation or your connection or your vibratory focus has been narrowed way down to what's really the most important thing to you. Whereas before you might have been able to take them for granted. You were able to enjoy all sorts of different types of things, and and maybe didn't realize at the time, which I didn't. You take Irene out of the picture, nothing even matters to me anymore. It's like all of those other things don't even matter to me, and so the attention just gets narrowed down and focused. And I think that over time, as people get the feeling better about it, uh, that worry could crop up too. That they're starting to take them for granted, and that they're not doing enough. But if you actually pay attention, I think, to your daily routine and the small things that you do every day, you realize they're still constantly on your mind. They're still constantly in your heart. You're still constantly talking to them one way or another. And when you get my experience is that if I and that's just happened a few times. If I ever get too far away from that, I start feeling awful, and I like, oh my God, I need to get myself back on course, because then everything starts like turning a little bit sad, or turning a little bit blue, or I don't feel right, and I don't feel at home. When I've got this constant going on with Irene in my head, just feel at home, and it feels very comfortable. And so I just wanted to, which I did yesterday, I want to do it in this video, is that's the important work. It doesn't feel like work because it's something you're just doing naturally. And it's something you enjoy doing, and it's something that makes you feel good doing, just these little things, these little connections, this ongoing stream of intention and attention that you've got going on. That's the real work. And everything else that you uh, if you feel compelled to, or if you feel thrilled to do it, or you feel led to do it, whatever it is, in addition to that, go do it. Go do all that. But you don't have to do it out of a sense of desperation that things won't happen fast enough, or they won't happen at all, or that you're doing something wrong if you don't go down this path or that path, or try this or try that. And I know everybody is really frantic and desperate in the beginning, uh, but this is a like kind of a long burning vibratory thing. It's like a slow, proper build up and manifestation of the connection. And so if you're looking for those more wow like connections, doing this little thing every day, which you're doing anyway, that's all it takes. You don't have to get you don't have to, jump into the big pool and try to create a big tidal wave. It's just that slow, steady, everyday ease of staying in vibrational harmony with your partner that does it. Does it that make sense to you, Mary Beth?
Yes, yes. And, what you're talking about brings me back to the very beginnings of this group when we used to tell people, we don't really say it too much anymore because we've been doing this for what, almost 8 years now. And in the beginning, we would remind people that the group that we have, is not a grief group because we're not grief experts and we're not focused on the grief and we're not, um, we're not well, you and I are not mediums or counselors or anything like that. But we are two people who had our most precious person cross over. And so we can relate to that. And we managed to get on the other side of grief, which is, it's a really beautiful, it's living the dream, honest to God. But at the same time, I've heard people say that they're a little afraid, nobody wants to be in searing grief. It feels like, I don't know, for me, it felt like I wasn't going to live. I thought nobody can possibly live with this for any length of time. It's so, so, so constantly, relentlessly painful. It's like physical, mental, emotional torture. But I also have heard people who, talk about like wanting to move on with their partner, their lover. But then when they start to feel better, that sets up a little bit of panic in them because, oh no, what does this mean? How could I possibly feel better without my most precious person with me physically? I don't, in other words, if for them, for some people, it feels like it's a moving away from the person. And so that causes them some angst as well. So now they've got grief going on, plus a worry that like it's a push-pull, like they're hearing that it's really great on the other side of grief, but they're afraid to go there for fear that they will be the ones, leaving their partner in the dust, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I understand. I sort of understand that. That wasn't my psychology, so I don't resonate with it. But I've been in enough other, just reading enough comments in enough other grief groups, not ours, but other people's real grief groups, where people say that they never, ever, ever want, that that's the cost of love, that they have to live in this with this pain. That's the price that you pay for love. And there's all these sayings around it, like that's the price you pay for love. And I don't know. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, except to say that you said something yesterday in the group as well that was really wonderful, is that all these little things that we do for our partner, every little thought, every single little, every time I put honey on my English muffin and write that P or put a little heart or whatever, that those are all little love offerings. They're small, but they're love offerings and they're constant and they're all the time. And I just want to reassure people that if they begin to feel better, you don't have to panic that your person's going to go away. They're with you no matter what. They're with you if you live in searing grief from now until the day you pass. They're there either way. But when you can allow yourself to feel better and to acknowledge the love that you have and all the ways that you were demonstrating that love to the person who is your most special person, when you can like kind of give yourself credit for that, because it's not, it's not an easy road, especially in the beginning. But when you can begin to acknowledge that you're not doing it right, but that you're just doing it, and it's constant. And even if, for me, even if I'm working on something else, I have other projects that are not directly related to Paul and this and that. But the, but I know he's right there underneath everything. Like I just feel, if I stop for a second, he's there. And so they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. No, it's almost like excuse me. They're not going anywhere no matter what you do. So you might as well feel better about the whole thing and enjoy the transdimensional love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I've often thought about. I recognize, and I try to, I don't try, I do just think about this, pretty much every day. I recognize that the only reason that I'm, feeling good. Like I'm a very happy person now, and very very full of happiness and joy, even if it doesn't look like it. It's true. but the the I recognize the only reason, the support, the foundation of that is this sense that Irene is with me and that we're still together,
Yes.
and our relationship has continued and is continuing on, and we have all this to look forward to, all this beautiful stuff to look forward to. And so that just, if you were to take that foundation out from underneath me, I would be right back in grief. I would be right back in the worst grief, and feeling that's gone. And that was true, long before Irene died. During the whole course of our relationship, whenever I got to feeling bad or full of angst or worry or whatever, I could just physically be around Irene, get her to sit next to me or lie down with me on the bed or the couch, and just lay there. And in 5 minutes, I was good. I was completely good. And so that's what I recognize now, is that it's that it's like getting on the other side of that grief. And it's not like I'm taking Irene for granted, because I don't think I could ever do that again, because of the death of her death. And it just burned into my soul, I guess you could say, how much she means to me. And so I know that now. And uh but on the other side of that grief is that kind of, it gets to where your relationship feels normal without the taking of granted. It's not like the normal it used to be. It's like a heightened normal. It's like a heightened connection, a heightened sense of togetherness, a heightened sense that they're always there with you, and a heightened sense of that love. And so it's like, and there were times in our relationship that I felt that. Some of them were pretty extremely good times. Uh, but it's like my baseline has been elevated by this. The baseline of how I feel about a relationship and how I feel about my connection to Irene has been greatly elevated by this experience. And I think you feel the same way.
Yeah, I just wrote before you even were talking, I wrote this down, a little note to myself to remember to say this. For me, and I think I'm guessing you're going to agree with this, and anybody who's listening. For me, what it is, especially when you can get to the other side of grief. I'm a big proponent of getting to the other side of grief. It's like you have a history together, right? You have the history that you built up before they passed and since they passed, and you got through all the grief and blah blah. So it's like the best of the ordinary regular times and the heightened romance that's even way beyond. I can't even really exactly imagine this, but way beyond the beginning days when you're falling in love and you're just in bliss with them. And so it's a combination, because now we know them well. They know us even better than ever, because of all we've gone through and how devoted we are to them. And that the death and the pain, not only did it not break us apart, but it strengthened the union that we have with them. And and we have all this more enhanced stuff to look forward to. I can't even imagine it being, I mean, Paul and I, I've often said that we had this fabulous romance our whole time we were together. Um, and it's going to that the romantic part is going to get even better, 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 better with this person who's this steady, constant, joy in your life. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world, because I can walk around with Paul knowing he's with me all the time, all the time.
Yep.
And I would like to say that I have never seen Paul. I've never heard his voice in my ear. I had a couple of what I would consider extraordinary experiences. And I've said this before: when he died and I was holding his hand, the second he died, I sensed his energy whoosh out the top of his head. I didn't expect that. I wasn't knowledgeable about afterlife studies where they say that this is a common phenomenon. And nobody could convince me that didn't happen because at the second he died and that happened, I kind of forgot he died. I went, oh, wow, like, wow. And I always consider that my moment of grace. That's the most profound thing that ever happened to me. And then I had one very small but significant astral travel dream that lasted just, I don't even think in my mind, like 30 seconds. So those are the two things that really were extraordinary for me. And of course, I've had signs and synchronicities and, kind of experiences that many of us have had, but I have not. I think I told you, William, or maybe I said in the group, that I met a woman whose husband appeared to her solid and real, and they had a conversation and they hugged. And she said, Mary Beth, he was as real to me as you are to me sitting in front of me now. Now, that kind of thing has not happened to me at all, at all. But I am beyond a doubt that Paul is with me and that we will be together again. So you don't, in case I'm saying this, because in case any of our listeners say, well, I haven't even had a dream yet, that's fine. It's fine. All of that stuff is like icing on the cake because I think, everybody has something or another thing that happens. But for some people, even if they had something as extraordinary as having their partner appear to them solid and real, they still have doubts. So I think if you want to live a happy life here while you're waiting to be reunited there, I think and you want to enjoy your partner as much as possible, then it's a good goal to try to get to the other side of grief.
Yeah.
That worked for me. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody, and that's fine. Everybody has to do their own thing. But I was pretty much hell bent on feeling good so I could feel Paul with me, and that worked for me.
All right. We have a question. Let's see. Do you think they get bored if we aren't focused on them for some time? Like if you get busy doing projects or whatever, and I would say, what makes you think they aren't busy doing their own project while you're busy doing your project? So this is a part of, I was said a little bit about this in the meeting yesterday, and that is uh, from multiple sources, especially from Jurgen, but from multiple sources, is that in the afterlife, the norm there is synchronicity. So here you might get a little bit of synchronicity and or you might experience times when there's a lot of synchronicities going on, but the norm over there is synchronicity. And I think that as we progress in this relationship and continue on, one of the things we kind of fail to understand is that we're synchronized at a very deep level with our partners. And so if like we have our attention turned to doing some project here, it is, I would bet money it's synchronous with our partners, doing things over there, just as we would do here in life when they were alive, right? Irene would take the truck down and do something, and I would get on the computer and do some work or whatever. And it was just like a natural flow of in other words, we wouldn't, it's like what in life, I'll just give you an example from my life. In life, if I constantly talked to Irene, she would just give me a look like, yeah, she would just get annoyed. If I tried to continually insert myself into whatever she was doing, she would just get annoyed at it. But we had this. But if I needed her, I mean, she would just stop whatever she's doing and come on over, and do whatever I needed her to do with me to make me feel better. So it's you develop this natural synchronicity with each other, uh, and it's something that's usually operating below the surface of your conscious mind. And the main thing is uh, just stop worrying about that kind of stuff because it's just there's a lot of things that we worry about over here. Like I actually this is a thing I used to talk about is it was whether or not I was annoying her because I was constantly talking to her, and it's just the thing is it's not the same kind of thing here because and there's a lot behind this, but it's when I am constantly talking to Irene and telling her I love her and making little funny comments to her, and she's always, making little funny comments back about whatever we're watching. That's experienced kind of a different way, especially after they die. But here, it's like that's like a stream of love coming into them. That's like a stream of loving attention coming into them. And so it's not something you get annoyed with, or it's not something that you feel, like it's something you don't want. It's like an injection, a constant ongoing injection of loving attention that feels wonderful. It feels wonderful. And when I get that back from Irene, those times when I can feel that coming in, because sometimes it just comes in out of nowhere. I'll just be walking around the house and I'll feel it. It's just the most wonderful sensation. So am I annoyed by that? I'm never annoyed by it. It's freaking awesome. So you have to understand that's what they're feeling when you give them this attention and doing that kind of thing. And it's not, you're not depriving them of that if you're locked in on a project and doing a project. And even if that project is lasting most of your day and it's exhausting you every day and you're going to sleep or doing whatever, this is a synchronistic relationship, you know, emanating from two beings that are just at their core wrapped up around each other. Stop worrying about it. It's fine. It's all completely fine. They're not out of sync with you. I guess if that makes any sense. Um, so let's see.
A
Yeah,
little, can I insert a little
yeah,
thing?
definitely.
A,
Yeah,
a little comparison that just came to mind. The sources I like that I refer to and go back to again and again, they all say similar things, and they say that your love is only a thought away, right? And they also say that the afterlife has many similarities. It's not going to be an uncomfortable transition. There's a lot of similarities, except everything's enhanced and way, way better. So, so with that in mind, sometimes I think about my life with Paul here and how it might be the same there. And as you were talking, William, I just remembered this thing that I like to walk in nice weather. I like to go out and walk. And so when Paul and I were living together, I would, take a daily walk by myself. And one time I was out walking and the heavens opened up and it just started pouring. And I was not close to home. And I was like, oh man. And sure enough, Paul and his red truck drove up right next to me to pick me up. And so even though we weren't together, he's thinking, oh gosh, she's out there on her walk and it's pouring rain. I better go get her. And that was, I just thought that was so sweet. It was like the knight in shining armor pulling up beside me, come on, babe, get in. And I was like a drippy mess. And so it's, we were just, I think what I'm trying to say is that we were just there for each other in these very sweet little moments. And I think that it's that way now in
yes,
this trans-dimensional phase, and it will be that way after we cross over, that we'll just like be there and be in sync and just, know when the other person just know when the other person needs it. Paul knew I needed him when everything, when it started to rain, and his impulse was to help me and to be there for me. And it's just a tiny little example, but I think that that's the way it is now. And so when we need them, I think we can call on them. They're only a thought away. I
yeah,
often I don't really know from day to day what Paul is doing over there. He loved home renovation. He loved woodworking projects. So I imagine him doing those kinds of things.
yeah,
But I think if I'm upset about something, I think he's right here with me and I can
yeah,
talk to him, and I don't really think I'm interrupting him, because when he was physically focused, if I needed to talk to him, he would drop whatever he was doing and sit with me and talk. And so I think our relationship is going to, is much the same now. And it's going to be much the same when I cross over, except greatly enhanced, of course, because we can see them and feel them and touch them and be intimate with them, in every way possible. So it's so I feel very privileged to have, gone through all of that and to realize this. I feel very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, this is this is called an enhanced normal relationship. Once you get to this point, it's like an enhanced normal relationship. And one of the things, a little story I wanted to tell was long before Irene got sick, she stopped working and stayed at home, and I was still going to a job, even though I also had like a little home business starting. And when it came to the point to where I could just stop doing that job and just do my home business, she told me one time that, but I would still, like after she got sick, she would, I also had to go uh, by myself because a lot of times because of her breathing issues, I go by myself and go to the grocery store, go do whatever. And she told me at some point that she really, really loves it that we are both here at the house. And she told me, even though we're in different rooms,
Yes.
it makes her feel so good to know that I'm just right in the next room. And that's really, it made her feel made her feel calm and safe and that everything was all right, because I was just right there in the next room. Even if we might go several hours where she's, playing games on her computer and I'm doing some work on my computer. And I know I know what she's talking about. There is just that sense that they're there, and that,
Yeah.
and it's that home sense. You feel you're all right. Everything's right with the world. They're there. And, that's what I'm talking about is you get to that place where you not only know that they're there and that you're in your home now, even in this transdimensional relationship, the two of you are in your home now together, but that's the way it's going to be from now on. And it's only going to get better. So,
Yeah. It's like
I
the
mean,
Holy Grail. It's like we have the, I can't imagine anybody not wanting this. I guess there are people who don't seek out, romantic relationships. I don't really get that because since I was young, I wanted big love. I really, really wanted the Cinderella thing. I wanted that. And, and I finally got it. And I can't imagine, anything better. I mean, I have other loved ones. I love my kids dearly and all that. But this relationship, this intimate relationship that you have with this person that you love so much and they love you is so gorgeous. I don't know. I don't know any other word for it. It's just, and to be able, and what you just said about like in the other room, I know that there's been people who say, well, just imagine that they're in the other room. It's not exactly like that. Like now, it's not like I imagine that Paul's in the other room watching TV, but more that he's just really with me and I can
mhm.
access him and his sensibility and his Paulness anytime I want. And it really is just a matter of attention, putting your attention on it, even a little bit. Because I'm guessing, I don't know. I don't know everything, but I think it's a matter of maybe, like you say, psychology or something, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with it, but I'm trying to describe something that's sort of indescribable.
Well, the way I would put that is what we talked about in the beginning was that ongoing thing, that ongoing connection, which is just what you were talking about, this just the sweet little things and the talking and the feeling of love in their heart. That is rewriting your psychology. That's
Mm.
rewriting that's the manifestation that is a constant, consistent stream of being in contact with them and of the two of you being connected across the veil, so to speak, manifesting. Okay. And that's an extremely powerful thing. Yeah, it's an extremely powerful thing. And why is that? Because what happens to most people is they disconnect. People die, and it's just a disconnection occurs. And they, I don't know if so. And the thing that I would say that's kind of important. I don't want to put any pressure on anybody, but it's kind of important to try to work your way through that grief. Is if that connection is constantly also activating the grief, it kind of the manifestation can get a little strange or can get a little weird. And I think this is what happens, like when people are constantly having bad or upsetting dreams of their partner, or the partner tries to come through in a dream, and it manifests some weird, because that's happened to me when in dreams with Irene, some weird stuff is that grief and doubt, and that those insecurities can work their way into your dreams, and they can work your way into your daily life where things can upset you and you wonder, uh, uh, are they mad at me? Are they not talking to me? Do they still love me? And it can cause all these weird thoughts in your mind because of that. And I think that just holding your end, which in this world is very difficult for most people. For whatever reason, it's just like almost natural to us. I think it's because of our unique soulmate relationships with our people, is holding that love as that constant manifestation, constant vibrational, constant creative and connective, uh, red string or golden rope, as somebody else has called it. That just honoring that, and just holding on to that, and doing your part to put in the best, the sweetest, the most loving, the happiest that you can manage, is what starts the ball rolling, starts overriding, reprogramming your psychology at the deepest levels in ways that you're not even consciously aware of. And then we've seen this many, many times in the group, is that like people coming into group, and that's one of the great things about about our group, is that we are constantly reinforcing that connection, the loving part of it, the sweet part of it, the happy part of it. This is why we don't focus on the grief. Part of the reason why we don't focus on the grief is that it enhances, it helps to vibrate that thing, or to kind of hone that vibration down, that connection down to that sweet, loving, ongoing, daily connection that we have with our partners, so that that can do its work. That, and without a whole bunch of other stuff, causing ripples in the waves, and flailing about. And that's what I consider now. A lot of what I did in the beginning was just flailing. It's like they throw you in this abyss of dark water, and you're just flailing around trying to, you know,
Well,
try,
we were all doing
yeah,
things like that in the beginning.
yeah.
William and I connected up. Paul passed before William, um, before Irene, rather. I mean, not William. Uh, but so I guess they were maybe about a year apart, but we kind of connected around that same time. Like it was soon after Irene passed it, and I was not, through the grief yet. So I think when we first connected, it was maybe kind of at the tail end of the grief, and that's when we decided to start the group. But one thing that I remember early on, William, a conversation that came up early on was that, and this was happening to me, was that when Paul passed initially, I got tons of physical signs. I won't even list them, but there were all these physical. It was unmistakable signs from him. But then they sort of started to wane a bit, and I started to panic a little bit, and like, well, not really panic, because I try not to do that, but I mean, like, oh, because you hear all this stupid stuff about, well, they they love you, but they have other love to, all that crap. So I remember you said, well, this is like an ordinary relationship. I mean, it's like any relationship, not ordinary, but I mean, it's like any relationship that there's a give and take. And so if you're constantly looking for external signs, that's fine. But then if you don't see them, then you start to oh no, I asked for this, I didn't see what happened. And people can like work themselves up into a lather over that. And so that's when you suggested, well, give them some signs. And that was really like a godsend to me because first of all, I don't like sitting around waiting for stuff. Would rather, take action myself. And so that was the beginning. And that's when you told everyone that you would make your coffee for the coffee for Irene and that ever since then, every single day since then, 8 years ago, whatever it was, I started making, I always pour 2 cups of coffee every single time. And
Mhm.
so that was helpful. And then I got on this roll about how many different things could I do for Paul? And some of them were really, getting back to the beginning of this whole conversation, some of them were really small. And I let me veer off one little side note. I was in my earlier years, I was a teacher, and I tried to always talk to parents about ways that they could connect with their own kid. The parents would say, "Oh, I'm so busy, I can't do homework." And I would always try to find ways that they could connect with their kid while they were at it. I call them while you're at it things. So while you're grocery shopping with your little child, you could be talking about vegetables, or you could be, I don't know, all these different little things. But in this situation, the while you're at it also works. And I'm going to say something. This is kind of private. I wasn't going to say this because it was sort of between Paul and me, but I'll say it for the sake of people who who might be saying, "Oh my gosh, I get 3 hours sleep. I'm so busy. How am I ever supposed to set aside time or, aside from my thoughts, how am I ever supposed to do anything for my partner? I love them, but I'm just inundated and I'm sad and I'm drained every day." So here's one thing that I did that really works is that I sing to Paul, sometimes just in my head, but out loud. And I pick a song, any song, doesn't matter what the song is, and I just sing his name over and over again. So let's say it's Happy Birthday, right? So instead of singing Happy Birthday to, I might sing, I love you, Paul Mang. I love you, Paul Mang. I love you. Now I could be in the car doing that, and look over at well, hey, leave me alone. I love you, Paul Mang. And just repeating that over and over again lifts me up and it
Mhm.
makes me feel good. And I can do that. I can do that wherever I am. I can do that if I'm at the Department of Motor Vehicles waiting for my, new license. And in my head, I can sing songs and just sing his name. Just sometimes his name. Paul Mang, Paul Mang, Paul Mang, Paul Mang. I can hear him laughing right now. But it's those kinds of things. If you can figure out, or like when I put the little honey on the English muffin. If you can figure out some things for yourself that you can do while you're at it, and I'm sure a lot of you already do these kinds of things. Um, but then you can keep them front and center without, you know, meditating for hours. I used to do things. I used to in the bank in Manx Bank where we lived, the bank building that Paul had renovated, there was a vault. And inside the vault, if you closed the door, it was pitch black. And Raymond Moody had written a book about how you can do, I think it's called scrying, where you gaze into a mirror and you talk to your loved one on the other side. And supposedly, if you're successful, their image appears and they can talk back to you. I was convinced I could do this. Well, I don't want to tell you how long I spent in a dark closet. I've come out of the closet though. I will say that I came out. Another thing I did was another medium I heard online. What he did was he would take little Scrabble tiles and put them in a box
Mhm.
lid, like a shoebox lid, a shallow box lid, and just spread them around and put them under the bed, and then wait a couple days and pull them out, and like they would have moved around and made a message. Like, and what I wanted was, I love you. Your sweetheart, Paul. That's what I was hoping for. Well, none of those tiles ever moved, ever. And I was sure they would. I was sure they would because when Paul and I were teenagers and got together at a party, we were sitting on the floor in front of a coffee table that had Scrabble tiles. And the reason that Paul and I got together was he was making funny sayings out of the letter. He was spelling funny things. And I thought, this is it. This is it for me. The Scrabble tile thing is it for me. I can't tell you how disappointed I was when the
Yeah.
Scrabble tiles didn't work. I was disappointed when the scrying didn't work. I tried automatic writing, that didn't work. I tried all these things. I was so desperate to have, I thought, if we have this real love, it's one of these things that's got to work. And nothing worked. I have to say nothing really worked. None of those things I tried.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the so that's part of the thing. That's one of the reasons I did try a lot of things. And what I soon recognized, which I'm sure you experienced too, was the frustration.
Yes.
I would just get frustrated, and it's like, and then I'd beat myself up. I'd try it for a while, and then I'd be like the EVP thing, and I'd do the whole EVP thing, and manipulate the audio controls through some program and see what I could hear. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It obviously works for some people, but I'd be like, oh God, this is exhausting. And it's so much mental effort and nothing came through and I would just be frustrated about it. And so my thought on that, you keep trying all these different things that are just frustrating. They're like a lot of work, a lot of effort, and then they're just frustrating at the end. And so my thought process turned to, okay, what can I do that I just enjoy doing that? Whether or not it brings me any, any better contact with Irene or communication or whatever, that I just enjoy doing that on its own, for doing that sake. And then it got really, it honed down really, specifically to, I do like to lay down and imagine that Irene is laying down, kind of half on me, and we're just laying there. I got my arm around her, and her hair is up in my face, and we're just talking about, or I'm telling her what I'm seeing, as I'm looking at the backside of my eyelids, and we talk about, if I have little hypnagogic experiences, how random and hilarious they are, that I'm a dog on the floor somewhere looking at somebody's feet. That actually happened. And so but that's, it's what you're talking about. There's that flailing about, that desperation, where you try a lot of things and you like, you go through disappointments and the frustration of it, and that thought like, well, why are other people getting these experiences and I'm not getting these experiences? And you earlier said something about people not getting any signs at all. Why am I not getting any signs at all? And so my thought on that is, the closer I got to things that were very simple that I enjoyed doing on their own, and that were just kind of came naturally to me anyway. And it wasn't a bother. It wasn't a bother. It didn't require a huge amount of effort. uh, and just get it down to those things. So I could do those things every day because I enjoy doing them, and they're fun and they're easy and I enjoy doing them. The problem lies in this. You got this part of your brain saying it's not enough, you know,
Yes. Yes.
those big experiences aren't happening. This isn't enough. And
And sometimes I would feel lazy. Like if I wasn't doing something extraordinary and taking a big chunk of time, then the other little things didn't really count.
yeah, yeah,
And,
and
yeah.
that's the big problem with this is so anyway, that's the reframing that I want to offer people, if it resonates with them, and if they want to accept that, is you're doing enough work. You're doing all the work that you need to do. If you're just talking to them and feeling that love and being sweet, like if I'm watching TV, I could be watching somebody reacting to a movie, and I'll be going, okay, babe, let's see if this person's any good. I'll start the video, so anyway, and I'll say, I'll be talking to Irene. I'll be like, do these people know that they're doing a reaction channel? Where's the reaction? They're not reacting. They're just sitting there staring at the movie. We have a little laugh about it. And that's just the normal stuff of just being in that relationship with her. And what I want to tell people is that a big part of this, when you do that, is that's what I say is like reprogramming you, where your subconscious, so your subconscious can't tell the difference between like pretend and reality, or between imagination and reality. It can't tell the difference. We don't see things. And what you're doing is convincing the subconscious that they're right there with you, because your subconscious hears you constantly talking to them. Here, it senses how you feel like they're there. and you do these things like you make their coffee or whatever. You set a little mint on their pillow or whatever. It's little things like that that convince your subconscious over time. Well, they're still here. There's That person is still here, so there's no reason for me to be sad. This is a normal relationship. The normal relationship has just continued on, and that convinces you at a neurological level. This is not airy fairy stuff. This is science. It actually reprograms your brain and your nervous system, and then because you've been reprogrammed, is you don't react the same way. You don't have that grief because your subconscious is convinced they're still right there with you. So all that is part of why I want to let people know is understand how much your work you're actually doing, how much of this you're actually doing every day. It's a tremendous amount. And the only reason it doesn't feel like you're doing a big thing is because it's like coming naturally to you and it's easy and you enjoy doing it and it's something you would do anyway. So, and that's what they say when you love what you do, it's not work. You never work a day in your life, right? So it's like the AI stuff that I've been doing. That's not me forcing myself to do anything. I love doing that stuff. I love doing that AI stuff, the creating those images and those videos and stuff. And so the I would say that the same is true of anything that you want to try, with your partner or interacting with your partner, is that it will come to you. When you're constantly doing this vibration, if you're wondering what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years or 30 years or however long you see yourself still living on this planet, is that stuff will come to you because you're already doing the work of bringing it to you, of manifesting that stuff in your life. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about, well, how am I going to get through the next 20 or 30 years? Okay. You can't see what that stuff is already bringing in your direction, if that makes sense, right, Mary Beth?
Yes, yes, exactly. So there are two things really that I think you can correct me if I misunderstood, but this whole idea of really, first of all, not comparing yourself with what anybody else. I'm not Raymond Moody. I'm not, I'm not any of those people. Apparently, it didn't happen, but just to focus on what feels good to you. First of all, it just feels good. I mean, the little things that you do on a regular basis, and giving yourself credit for them and remembering that they're like little, I think of them as little love notes, little sticky love. I mean, I don't really do this, but like little sticky love notes I put out all over everything. And to give yourself credit for that. And when you're doing those things and appreciating yourself for doing them, and telling your partner how much you love them and how fabulous it is to be with them and all the things that you're looking forward to together, all those little things. And a lot of that you can do just in your mind. It doesn't even have to be any external actions. You're convincing yourself, or reminding yourself is a better way to put it, that they are right there with you and you get to feel good in the process. Because all those things I tried, and I'm not discouraging anybody from trying things that they read about. Sometimes things work for people. They just didn't work for me necessarily. And so I had to go to other things that were easier and less involved and that were sustainable for me. It wasn't sustainable for me to sit in the Manx Bank closet or vault room for hours every day. It just wasn't sustainable. Maybe I didn't do it long enough. That's the other thing I would say to myself. I don't know. Maybe I gave up too soon. Maybe I should try harder. I mean, I'm really could be, queen of beating myself up. And so I stopped all that. I stopped all that because I had a plan in mind that I got from Abraham, that the better you feel, the easier it is for you to feel them with you. They're there whether or not you feel good. But why not feel good in the process? Why not, that's the whole point of anything that we want, is to feel better for having it. And so it can feel so amazingly fabulous to have our partners with us when we feel good. And
Yeah.
and to if you want to do a big McGill, like recently it was Paul's birthday and angelversary are very close together. And for both of those, I had a cake, I lit candles, I Oh, and on both his birthday, I went to see on his angelversary, I went to see John Edward, the medium. And I had to travel about an hour from where I lived, and he was at a hotel, and so I booked a night at the hotel for Paul and me, and we had a romantic evening. That's a big thing. But it wasn't metaphysical in the sense that I had to, try some process to make something happen. I was just trying to have a good time with Paul. And then on his birthday, which just passed, I also bought a cake, and that's when I scheduled a little online reading with Tony Stockwell. So I try to make these things celebrations rather than, oh, it's his birthday and we'll never get to. I don't do that. I never did that because from right from the start, I learned that was not going to get me my goal. I always tell my own kids when they say, should I do this or that? I'd say, well, we have short-term goals and long-term goals. Is what you want going to get you a short-term goal or a long-term goal? My short-term goal and my long-term goal is Paul. That's it. So the things I do in the short term, if they're helping me feel connected and better about, how I'm treating him, how I treat myself, that's good. And the long-term goal is is just waiting for us no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that the thing about the long-term goals, when people are looking at, they got 20, 30, 40, 50 maybe years of life left here. How am I going to do this? What am I supposed to do? Is it just going to be, me doing my job and being exhausted every day and, having 1,000 things to do every day and blah, blah, blah. And so here's the thing is that and here's an example is that when all this started back after Irene died, and I went through about 4.5 or 5 months of serious grief, and I was really, really seriously reprogramming myself. As I said, I would do the reprogramming even when I was curled up on the floor, bawling my eyes out, or driving the car and just screaming at the top of my lungs. And I would still be saying, "I love you, baby." I probably say, "I love you, baby," 100 times a day at least. It's just constant.
Yes.
And if I'm making food, I'm always, from the very beginning, I was pouring her coffee. I was talking to her about the food. What do you want to make today to eat? Or where do you want to go? If I was at the grocery store, I was talking to her. Driving around talking to her. And so this is what happened is uh, I got the feeling better after about 4.5 or 5 months. The serious grief had gone. And then after another 4 or 5 months, I was no longer even sad. There was no longing, there was no sadness. I was fairly happy. And so it was about, I don't know, a couple of months after that of me being at this place of being happy or just not being in the serious grief and doing these constant stream things, constant everyday little things, interacting with Irene. And of course, I was still at that time. Of course, I was especially earlier on. I was flailing about, trying to find some way for a bigger connection or for whatever. But that's when Mary Beth and I met. And so here's two people never met each other before, didn't know anything about each other, and so we happened to be in the same group. I write something, and she likes what I had to say. She was feeling better too, and so she suggests starting a group, and I was like, eh. Yeah. So I have this whole sidebar thing where I learn at living with Irene to just not get in the way of something happening. I don't know what's going to happen. In my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think that's going to happen, but I would never get in the way of it happening. And she would pull off the most remarkable psychic stuff, and stuff would happen for us. And I'd be sitting there going, how the hell did that happen? So anyway, so my thing was just not get in the way. It was, if she wants to start a Facebook group, we'll probably have 5 or 6 people total ever in this
Well,
group.
excuse me, but you're not telling the whole story. The whole story is that we were in this group that was similar to our Love Afterlife group. This group doesn't exist anymore, by the way. But in the group, um, William was writing how he was feeling better and better, how he was reprogramming himself to feel closer with Irene and to reassure himself, not closer, but to reassure himself that she was still there with him. And the group was for people whose partners had passed, who never wanted to repartner. And they acknowledged, everybody's grief journey is different and all that. Except when William started feeling better, that wasn't acceptable to them. And I was an admin of that group, and I just behind the scenes that, the admin can chat, and the admin were saying that was unbelievable and that he was holding the bar way too high for the people in our group. And it's ridiculous to think that anyone could feel better about their partner, their wife passing so quickly. And I don't know if they actually threw you out, William, of the group. But I remember talking to my sister on the phone, and I was saying, this guy, William, is kind of saying the things I'm saying to myself, that I was beginning to feel bad. Now, Paul had passed like a year before Irene, so I had longer, I didn't zoom through it as quickly as William did, but I was still feeling better and better. And I was drawn to what he said. And, Abraham says that when you have a desire, that the universe will bring together like-minded components. And so I just was drawn to him. And my sister said what none of us ever want to hear. She said, well, I really think it's time you move on. I said, what do you mean? She said, start your own group. And so I DM'd William, who I didn't know from, I never talked to him. I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know where he lived in the world. And I said, would you like to start our own group? And he said, okay. And that was the beginning of it. And so I really have to believe that, William and I were put together to form this new kind of group where it was desirable to feel okay. Not
Yeah.
just, well, if you feel okay, that's, everybody has their, but it's most desirable to feel okay. And when I recently went on my last summer, I went on a cruise and saw Abraham in person, and I met some people there. And I talked with this young man, and I was telling him about who was in the Abraham group, and I was telling him about our Love After Life group, and I said, we have about uh, 2,000 people in our group. But that's really a very tiny group. There are grief groups, official grief groups, with over 1 million people in them. And he said, that's because you're on the leading edge. And there's never a crowd on the leading edge. So what we're doing, all of us, not just William and me, but I mean everybody in the group, everybody who is like-minded with us, we're pioneers in all of this. And I think we have to give ourselves credit for that as well. And not only credit, but I think we have to celebrate that and say, not like oh, we're better than those other people. It's not that. I just mean that we have to celebrate that we've been open to it for the sake of our romances, because it's all about the romance. It's all
Yeah.
about the romantic love. And so it almost makes me get emotional that this is how much we love them, that we're pioneers in this and we're finding our way through it. And I want to hold the hand of every single person who's hurting in our group, the new people or whatever, to say, it's good, you're good, you're going to get there. It's a bit of a process, but the process really only involves focusing on the love and
Yeah.
of our person.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up the, how we got together, and that's part of what wanted to say about, if you don't know how you're going to get through the rest of your life or what you're going to do with the rest of your life, is I didn't plan this group. The way my personality was at the time, there would be no concept in my mind that I would be this guy doing this with this group and doing all the stuff that I'm doing in this group. And talking to lots of people on the phone and over Zoom, and having interviews about this stuff, and feeling like you know, I'm, me and Irene were kind of like duo loners. We were like two lone wolves who got along really good with each other. And even though she was like a real social person, could be, she was also just completely at home with just being a homebody and not going anywhere. And then, if a friend or a family member called her more than once a month, it was too much. So, so this is like, this was all new territory for me. And there was no way I could have foreseen any of this, so my the only thing I was trying to do in the beginning, the very beginning, was get the pain down to a manageable level so I could live the rest of my life. I had no idea all of the rest of this would flow from that. That not just like this group. That's like, I'm just talking about all the stuff I found out and how good I got to feel. That's like miraculous to me. How good it has gotten to be. How wonderful it is to be in this relationship, in the transdimensional stage of the relationship. I consider it such a blessing, and I'm so grateful and appreciative of it that this chapter in our ongoing relationship exists. I mean, this is a wonderful I know there's some people maybe due to this that are going, "Are you out of your mind?" That this chapter exists because there's so much opportunity in it for such a beautiful chapter to be written in our love stories that we will never forget, that will always be fresh in our mind as real. What we have gone through for each other, what we have done for each other because of our commitment and our love and that bond that we have together. It's like you were saying, Mary Beth, it's like a privilege to be able to live this story. It's a privilege to be who I am in this story with my wife, and not, that I'm one of the founders of this group. Yeah, that's great. But that's, and I'm glad of all that. And I've got a lot of people I consider my family and friends now, which I never had before. I never had a friend group before. And I care about the people in the group. But the most satisfying part of this is that oh my God, I'm a character, one of the lead characters in the one of the greatest love stories ever written. I mean, I, how do you can't even pay for that. That's just amazing, you know?
Well, not only that, William, but when we talked about when we first had conversations about, starting the group and what kind of thing we didn't want it to be a grief group and blah blah blah. But to have a place where we can go, I don't know if there's many other places like this. To have a place where we can all go, all of us, not just you and me, but everybody can go and celebrate and be happy and say, wow, when we have the Zoom group, I mean, of course, sometimes people come in with concerns. Everybody's in their different lives and different, places on this journey. But to have a place where nobody everybody applauds when you say, oh, I had this fabulous dream and I was with my partner and we hugged and this all this stuff. It's such a relief because sometimes new people especially, will say, well, I know this is going to sound kind of weird, and we're like, well, no, actually nothing sounds weird. And but to have a group where we can come and feel comfortable talking about our partners and the transdimensional romance and all even the little bumps along the way, like, did you guys go through this? And everybody, supports each other, and it's just like you said, miraculous. It's a really, really, really wonderful thing and such a privilege. And I think it's all born out of, well, because I follow Abraham a lot, and they say, their whole thing, their answer to every single thing is there's nothing more important than you feel good. Because when you feel good, you place yourself in the stream of love. And it increases the love. It opens up the floodgates of love. And so I was determined to feel better because they said the better you feel, the easier it is to feel your partner with you. And I believed it. And the other thing they said was, I know I've said this before, but it's really, kind of amazing to me that Abraham said that Esther, who channels Abraham, that when her beloved husband Jerry died, that she grieved heavily for a year. Now, this is a woman who for decades went out and said there is no death. And it surprised her that she grieved, but she did. And then she found the famous line, that Abraham said to her, stop looking for Jerry where he was and start looking for him where he is, because you're not going to see him physically around, you know. They didn't say that last part. I just added that for clarification.
Yeah.
And when she did that, she had a relationship that was even better than when Jerry was physically focused. And I remember listening to that over and over and thinking, I don't know if I can do that, Paul, but I'll try. I'm going to try my best. And all I did was I put my attention on things that helped me to feel good. Now I did do the elaborate things that we talked about, but I also did other things that were not related to Paul. For example, I took tap dancing lessons. And one of the reasons I took tap dancing lessons is, I always wanted to tap dance like the famous tap dancers. Believe me, I didn't get that far. But Paul and I, before when he was ill, he had a period of time where he felt better. And we loved to go like in little antique shops and poke around. And he found these shoes that were tap dancing shoes with the big bows. They look like the ones that the kids wore on the Mickey Mouse Club. And he bought them for me just for fun. And so I joined a tap dancing class because of that. And then I joined Toastmasters, which is a amateur speakers bureau that anybody can get up and say a speech. And I told speeches about Paul. And then because I love being with little kids and I'm good with them, I volunteered in a classroom. So the classroom had nothing to do with Paul. But on Valentine's Day, a year after he passed, and I walked into the classroom and I was on the verge of tears. And I walked into the classroom and the kids came up and said, "Oh, Miss Mary Beth, we love you. It's Valentine's Day. We're having a party." I just felt like I was in the right place. And so I did these things and lots of other little things, anything I could do to help myself feel better. I never said I lost him. I never, when people would say, "Oh, sorry for your loss," I said, "No, no, no, he's with me." Even if I was on shaky ground with that, I continue to reinforce that in myself. And like you said, William, I think over time, it erodes the grief and changes their psychology about it. At least that it worked for me. And it took some
Yeah.
effort. Oh, the other thing I did was I became involved with I love the Annie Nanji recordings from the Leslie Flint uh, website. I think I found my way to them through the Zamet newsletter, and they had a little notice about it. And I found these recordings of these people with him here on Earth and his wife on the other side. And she would come to him in seance and speak directly to him and told him all about what life was like there and how she was preparing their house together and how she could visit with friends and family and how anything that he wanted to get for her. Like if he was out shopping, if he said, "Oh, I wish I could buy these flowers for her," she would get a replica of them. And like all these really amazingly fabulous things. And I was so enthralled by all the messages that they gave that Annie delivered, that I decided there was a couple of I think there were, oh my gosh, hard to remember now, but I think there may be 60 recordings because he went in for 15 years. He went to Leslie Flint twice a year. And these recordings you could listen to them for free. You can listen to them for free right now. But a couple of them had transcriptions, and that made it easier for me to read as they were speaking to understand what they were all saying. Because there was Annie from Sweden, her husband Dinshaw from India. There was Leslie Flint from the UK. There was Leslie Flint's control, the spirit who brought Annie through, and he had a Cockney. Everybody had all these accents, and the recordings were old. It was hard to hear everything exactly. And so I contacted the Leslie Flint Trust, and I said, "How come only a couple of these recordings have the transcripts? They're very, very helpful." And they said, "Well, because we rely on volunteers to do them. They're too old to put into, software that's modern software. And so we rely on volunteers." I said, "I'll volunteer." And I began transcribing them. And that was a labor of love because it took me a long, long time to do them. And I got so much out of those. I was so bolstered by the notion, everything they said to each other, or most everything, was exactly what I wanted to hear, exactly what I wanted to hear. And she would say, "Oh, my darling, when you come to me, the world here is more solid and real than yours is to you. And of course, I will be able to feel your kiss upon my lips. And I was like, oh. And so all of those things together, hitting on the right resources and always, as much as possible, thinking, like the old Boy Scout thing, thought, word, and deed. All my thought, words and deeds relative to Paul, I tried to make them all positive and loving. And then it becomes habitual.
Yeah.
After a while, you just do it automatically. And there I could feel it lifting me out of this horrible, horrible hole that was so dark and pain. It was torture. Grief is to me, it was torture. So I saw nothing sacred in it except that it helped me to appreciate Paul all the more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about uh the these things just kind of come to us. Like the formation of this group just came to us. It's just like how you found Annie Nanji and all that just kind of comes to you. I don't know how many times that I have thought of a way of thinking about things in order to alleviate like doubts or worries or whatever. And then I see that exact same thing. I'm talking about the same day or the next day. It will just pop up from some strange place where they say the exact same thing and they're talking about the exact same stuff. And the we have this happen all the time in the group. We've had all these. We had a synchronicity just we had a lot of synchronicities over the past couple of weeks, but um, understand that this is a long-term thing as well. Is that you don't have to worry about what life is going to bring you or what you're going to do. That will just kind of make itself. It'll come to you. It will come down your path. Uh, and then I mean, you can think about the way you met your partner, right? The way you met your partner, how it ended up. Like Mary Beth has a wonderful story about that. Uh, with Irene and me, it was just like a series of weird coincidences that brought us together. Uh, and probably everybody has a story about how the events just basically came to you and kind of conspired to put you together. And over my lifetime, I've seen that happen. I don't know how many times. Of course, the biggest one was meeting Irene. And at the time, I mean, I didn't even believe in that kind of love. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I didn't even believe in that kind of love. And but it came to me. I was just the only thing that I was doing at the time was I was just here's the crazy part, Mary Beth. I was just doing stuff that made me feel better and made me feel good, you know. And I was like, not like I like going down to the local basketball court and playing basketball. That's what I like doing. I'd go down there and do it. I like driving down to the lake and just like getting on a little raft or something, or just swim around or just lay in the sun. I would do that regularly. I like to jog, and I was just spent a long time jogging, and I actually enjoyed doing that. I was just doing that about every day. I had a motorcycle. I liked riding on the motorcycle. I just did that, and I just kept myself kind of focused on things that made me feel good. And the next thing you know, I meet Irene, and that just blew my mind. But I guess the whole point is like it goes along with what you're talking about is the reason that the doing things that make you feel better and make you feel good and make you feel that love or whatever the reason that the reason what that does is that puts you in tune with going down that path of in life where you and your partner are synchronistically and energetically and vibrationally creating stuff in your lives, both over there and over here. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to overthink it or anything like that. Just feel good. Like that's the Mary Beth motto, which I completely support and subscribe to, is just feel good. And if you have these like nagging doubts or worries or like this like the sense that you're not doing enough, either if with something that we have said here or your own way, find a way to just put that to rest. Just put it to rest. Because as I've often said, one of the ways to understand this is you've already won the lottery. It's in the bank. Your lottery winnings are in the bank. It's just a question of how soon are you going to start drawing that that money out, that great fortune that you have out, and it's all waiting for you. And so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're doing enough. Like Mary Beth said, if you're in grief, misery for the rest of your life, that doesn't matter. Okay. It's that you are the, you have the love of your eternal existence. You know who they are. And that's the whole game right there. It's like the whole game. And that's one of the things I can't believe I met my soulmate. I can't believe that I met Irene and I found and experienced this incredible love. It's the craziest thing ever for me to think that.
I have that thought often, and it's amazing to me that I have like I'll be like I don't know, just doing something at home. I think I cannot believe that I'm married to Paul Mank. I can't believe that out of all the people in the whole entire world that he and I came together. Well, you know my story. We were uh, teenage sweethearts. But on our first date, he said to me, "I really like you, and I'd like to go steady," which meant we exchanged high school rings. Um, but I really want to go away to college. Paul's very smart, and he was our valedictorian, and he was nobody in our little town really went away to college. Most of the people didn't go to college. And he said, "But I want to go away to college, and I want to date a lot of people before I settle down. But I'll be true to you while we're going steady." And I was like, "Okay." And then of course came the day where he wanted to see somebody else. I think he didn't want to get too deep into to a relationship, but the love never, ever, ever went away. And a couple times after that, through the years, because both lived in Buffalo, New York, and I would see him here and there on the campus, or he came in one time into the restaurant where I was waitressing, and I waited on his table, and I mean, all I had to do was look at him, and my heart would soar. And he actually asked me out again a couple of years later, and then rescinded on the date because he said, "I don't want to hurt you, and I'm not ready to settle down again." But when we came together 35 years later, the same feeling. It was the same. It was the same as when I was 17. And I know we have some people in the group who Leslie McCombs has written about her relationship like that she knew her sweetheart when they were teenagers, and then again reunited later on. So the reunion stories are it's not mine. It's not mine alone. In fact, there was this years ago when Paul and I reunited online, but then we couldn't really be together. We were both married. We lived halfway across the country from each other. It's not like we were around the corner from each other or anything like that, but we emailed. And the minute I heard his voice, he called me one time, and that was a big deal for him to call. And I heard his voice, and it was just, oh my gosh, it just flooded back, and uh, what was I going to say? Oh, I think that separation though, that for me, that separation of 35 years, and then we couldn't get together right away, and it took a long time, and finally I was out of my marriage and he was out of his marriage, and then we could be together. I think that helped me now. That separation part, because I realized it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I couldn't communicate with him. It didn't matter if I couldn't see him. It didn't matter. He was my person. He was always my person. And he will always be my person no matter what. And so that, here's the other phrase though that I dislike. People say, "Love never dies." Well, yeah, that's great, but I want Paul. I mean, I want his body. I want to hold him and feel him. And so enough of the resources that I were drawn to, assured me that not only that the love isn't gone, but Paul isn't gone, and that we will be able to have that the full-blown experience, a great grand romantic reunion that is promised to all of us.
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah.
what. But why not have fun along the journey? Why not feel as good as you could possibly feel? If it, and I don't know if it was you, William, or someone else who said, I think it was you who said if we reverse the roles, like if I had passed before Paul, I really wouldn't want him stumbling around for decades, like lost and mourning. And I would want him to feel better, so that would make me feel better. So it reinforces each other.
Yeah.
And Abraham always says, the better you feel, the better you feel. And why not feel as good as why not feel as good as you can? And it's not disrespectful to begin to feel better. I don't believe
Right.
at all. That's what
Right.
I believe anyway.
Well, yeah, that's what Irene told me, that you don't have to be in pain to show me that you love me.
That
So
was that's another fabulous thing. So many of the different things that you've contributed, I hung my hat on. And that was one of them. People also go through a lot of difficult, everybody has their own circumstance, and people whose partners have passed, sometimes when the partner passes, it poses an economic burden on the person left. Oh my gosh, now I've got to, they might have three little kids under the age of 5. I mean, all these different things happen to people. And uh, wait, now I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something about that, oh, I know that w- one thing that happened to me that happens to some people is it was possessions became an issue. Now, for some people, there have been people in our group, for whatever reason, when their partner passed, family intervened. They weren't allowed to get, touchstones. They weren't allowed to have any. The apartment was locked, and they weren't allowed to get into it. I mean, like, just heaped more loss upon loss. It feels like to those people, and for those people who don't know it, after Paul passed, and I stayed in Michigan for 5 years, but then I wanted to live near, I'm getting older, and I wanted to live near my kids on Long Island. And so I sold the bank building we lived in, and I moved, and I couldn't take every single thing with me. There was way too much, and I knew I would never live in a building that large again. So William helped me, and he said, I think your relationship now is less about the stuff and more about the love. And that allowed me to let go of a lot of, even like I kept some things, but Paul's clothing, and I donated them to a shelter. He always donated to this men's shelter. And so I felt like it felt freeing in a way, like I was doing what Paul would want, to give his clothes to these people who couldn't afford clothes. But then when I packed my most special things and drove to Buffalo, where I stayed with a friend for a while before continuing on to Long Island. And my car was robbed of every single thing, every single precious thing Paul had given me, all the cards, all the notes, all the love notes, all the jewelry, all the gifts, all the photographs, everything was gone. And again, I had to remember what you said, William. It's less about the stuff and more about his remains gone. Less about the stuff, more about the love. Less about the stuff, more about the love. And so I've kept that in mind. And I do have touchstones here in my life. A few things managed to survive the robbery, but it is far less about the stuff and more about the love. And that's another gift, that as you move down the path, that it's the presence is so great. The presence is so great. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter. I had to get rid of my mattress that Paul and I used to sleep on. And I was like, I don't want to. But the thing was, so I had to buy a new mattress. And I thought about that, less about the stuff, more about the love. And getting rid of the mattress and getting a new mattress didn't affect my romance with Paul. But
right.
sometimes we get hung up on these little things, that we worry about. And a quote I just saw yesterday from Abraham, because I belong to some Abraham groups, was, "All worry is unnecessary."
Yeah. Yeah. Then one of the thoughts uh that I had when it came down to getting rid of some of Irene's stuff was I was really confident about it because I mean at the very beginning, of course, when the kids were kind of rifling through her hope chest and pulling stuff out to take, I had to walk outside, sit down outside and cry. But later on, I realized, because of afterlife information, you didn't. None of those things are gone. We still have all of those things. All of those things that you want still exist. in the afterlife. They're still there. And if you want them, you want to put them on your shelves or hang them on your wall or put them in your closet or whatever, they're there. You don't have to worry about it. And they have much more sensory input there than they did do here. Because if you think that they remind me of Paul or it reminds me of Irene, over there it absolutely emanates, those sensations and those feelings. So it's even better. And so you don't have to worry about that stuff. I realize that it can be difficult to let those things go, but we haven't lost anything.
Well, the
All
other thing, oh, I'm sorry, William.
no, no, go ahead.
The other thing that really helped me in that the car robbery was really painful for me. It was like it was I couldn't believe it happened. And I talked to my friend. I have a girlfriend who we've been friends for over 50 years. We were in college together. We were waitresses at the same restaurant. And I called Betsy and tearfully told her, Betsy, you can't believe this. My car was robbed and they even took Paul's cremains. And I had put them I had given his sons a portion of them, and I had put the remaining cremains inside I love teapots and tea things, and my sister had given me this gorgeous teapot I had never used. It was very beautiful, and I put the cremains in a bag in the teapot, and then put bubble wrap around the teapot and put it in its own special box so I could, preserve the cremains and everything. I said they took the cremains. And of course they didn't know. They just emptied everything. They just took the boxes. And so Betsy said to me, "Oh, Mary Beth, what if when they opened that box and unwrapped the teapot, what if they thought what was inside was herbal tea and they brewed Paul and drank him?" That made me laugh out loud. And I knew Paul was laughing out loud. And that just helped me. That helped me over all of it. It was just the perfect thing for her to say. And I have to believe Paul had a hand in that.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like Paul's humor there.
I laugh every time I think about that. It was
Yeah,
it was the most irreverent, funniest thing ever.
yeah, that's one of the good things, the great things about this journey is that there's a lot of stuff you just find funny. And there's a lot of humor to find in it. There's a lot of joy to find in it. It's really it just kind of builds this whole thing up of such a beautiful relationship that we carry over. Like there's so many memories. This is one of the things that I think like hurts people is the idea that they're not making new memories. But we're making new memories with our partners during this phase of the relationship. And we carry all of what came before and all of this over into our eternal home with them where we can enjoy all of this. And even the things that have hurt us matter over there because it all of that adds to the value of where we're going to find ourselves with our partners. That we've been through all of this, we've experienced all this, even the arguments, even the hassles, even the fights, even the heartaches and the things that you've gone through, is that adds such a fulfilling pleasure to our existence over there to know that we've been through all of this together. We've been through all of those things, and it makes us realize how wonderful it is that we've reached this place. It's in love stories, in the great love stories, there's always an element of conflict or tragedy, or that's what makes them so meaningful is that they work through, and and the more difficult it is, and the more I don't know what you'd call it tragedy that they have to go through before they get that payoff at the end makes it all the sweeter. It makes it all the more meaningful, all the more valuable. And we get to carry that with us for eternity. And I mean, I don't know how you beat that. You what story beats that story? It's just wonderful. It's like I've said this before. It's like all of us in this group are just writing and living the greatest love stories ever. These are the greatest love stories ever. And there will be a channel in the astral world, that has these movies on it, the movies of our lives, of these great love stories. So yeah, it's I know it's in the beginning. It's because I know I was there. I was there in the beginning. It's hard to understand how it's all worth it. And in the beginning, you're thinking, and I did this too. I'm just pissed off that, why would I go through this? Why would I agree to come here and go through this? Uh, did somebody convince me of it? Did somebody trick me into doing it? Did I make some kind of idiotic, choice? And now I look back at it, and I was mad. I would rant about it. I was going to beat up my higher self. If you send me here, when I get over there, me and the guides and the higher self are going to have a come to Jesus moment. I'm telling you what. So, but now, I'm on this end of it, and I'm like, oh, what a great decision. That's the best decision I ever made in my existence, was to come here and do this with Irene and experience this, just so it could be revealed to me and I could have that contrast and the understanding of, oh my God, this is, maybe I had some vague notion on the other side before I came here that Irene was my person, but good Lord, now it's burned into my soul, down deep at the deepest part. And that's worth it. I mean, it's worth coming here and going through all this. It's
Well,
worth coming here. Go ahead.
Abraham says that contrast, which is unwanted, anything unwanted in our life, that the purpose of it, and we came here knowing that this was an environment of contrast, wanted and unwanted things. But the purpose of the unwanted things, like you were saying, like, why would I ever have signed up for this? The purpose of the unwanted thing, people or circumstances, events, is because it helps us clarify and focus on more intently what we want. And so, for example, like their examples are things like, if you don't really think about your health too much until you get sick.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, I'll do anything to regain my health. And you don't think about money so much until you've lost all of it. And then you're like, oh, wait, I have to get more. And so this is this is like that. This extraordinary experience of having our partners pass and going on this journey of getting to the other side of the grief. This is, I mean, that's what I was, and I know you were too with Irene. I was just centered on, I need somehow to get back to Paul. I need somehow to reconnect with him. I need somehow to know that I'm not alone, that he's with me, that we'll be with each other forever. And it's not just pretty words, that it's really meaningful. And I was frantic at first. For a long time I was frantic. And even though I set a good game, deep, I mean, I was still like, sobbing, or I'd be out shopping and all of a sudden the grief would come up, like I always say, it came up like vomit, like out of nowhere, like, whoa. And I'd have to run to my car and sob in my car. It was not pretty. But all of that led to this.
Yeah.
And it's so satisfying and so exciting to be in a place where you no longer constantly question that. That question came up, I think in Zoom yesterday, where somebody said, how do I just stop questioning? Like I'm trying to do all the things, but I'm still doubting, doubting, doubting. And again, you were instrumental in that with me because I had had a really, really good reading. It was about 2 years out, 2.5 years out. So I was pretty stable, but and I had a reading with a medium who said to me, he's saying street legal. What is that? Is that some movie you guys watched? And I knew what street legal meant. Street legal meant I was out of my marriage, he was out of his marriage. We finally were able to get together and be with each other. And that was after, a long period, a blackout period where I had no contact with Paul whatsoever. And so finally we were able to be together, and be in each other's lives and have a romance. And, it was all good. But that was surprising that she said that because it was so specific and it was something I didn't put on Facebook or anything. And I said to you, at first it felt great that she said that, but then a day or two later, I started thinking, I don't know, maybe she read my thoughts, all the doubts creep in. So I called you and I said, what do you think? Do you think she was really bringing that message through from Paul? And you said, I think you have a commitment problem. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And you were saying that I wasn't committed to the idea, the notion that there's an afterlife, that Paul is there, that all of this is real. And you said to me that there came a point in time where you just decided, I'm deciding this is real. And I'm moving
Right.
forward with that. And I'm not going to entertain these doubts because they don't
Yeah.
feel good for one thing. And so in that moment, William, I decided that too. I was almost there anyway, but I just said, that's it. And
Yeah.
if a doubt came up, I just say, "Beep, goodbye." And that really, really works. So I'm eternally grateful for so many things that you've shared with me. Um, I always felt like you were, a few steps ahead. And I've been like really eternally grateful for all the advice and the little things I can hang on to. You don't have to hurt to tell me you love me. Um, uh, more about the love, less about the stuff. Those kinds of things, those little sayings, I say them. I remind myself of those all the time.
Well, I'll, I appreciate that, but I also want you to know that I appreciate the conversations that so many conversations you and I have had over the years, because it's in those conversations that those things occurred to me. I
Mm.
mean, most often it's while we're talking about it, those things occur to me. So, and that happens all the time with the group. And that's one of the reasons I love the group so much, is because it's not a top down authority kind of thing. It's a peer to peer thing.
Yes.
We are helping each other do this. And I don't know how many times that, people in the group have said things or engaged in conversations in Zoom or in post something that are very meaningful to me and trigger things in my mind to think about. And I think about them. And then I come up with, well, this might be a good way to see that. This might be a good way to reframe that. And I would never have thought about it. If it wasn't for our conversations or the people doing the things in the group, I would never have thought about it. And I wouldn't have had so many validations. I mean, the group has just provided all kinds of people, and myself as well, with all kinds of validations. And when you're talking about the commitment thing, is that, I decided very early on that this was not going to be me trying to find out if Irene loves me, if she exists, if there's an afterlife, and if it will be like what I want. Is I decided she does love me. This relationship does continue. There is an afterlife, and it will be what we want, what Irene and I want. It will be. And so that's like no. To anybody who says anything different, I am deciding this. I'm putting all of my chips in on this, and I am committed to this, 100% committed that it will be not only as good as I can imagine, it will be better. It will be far better than I can imagine, because that's what turned out in our relationship. When I had to make a decision, and Irene did too, in our relationship, whether we're going to put all of our chips in on each other. And when we decided to do that, it just got so much better after that. And it was because we put our chips all in on the relationship. And I often think this really isn't a grief group, and technically it has the afterlife. This is like a relationship group. This is fundamentally a relationship group. And one of the things that I remember watching the movie, I actually told him about this too. The guy who was responsible for this movie, but I was watching the movie, What Dreams May Come, and uh, in that movie, the Robin Williams character at towards the end has to make a decision whether he's going to leave his wife in hell and go back to heaven with his children, or stay there with her and not leave her. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. But when he makes a decision, he's going to stay in hell with her. I was like, That's me. That's who I'm going to be. I am not going to ever, for any reason, abandon the idea, the hope, the dream, the will to be with my wife for eternity. In a beautiful afterlife with her. It's just not going to happen. I don't care how long it takes. That's going to happen one way or another. And I'm not gonna settle for anything less than that, for anything other than that. And that's what I mean. I put my chips, all my emotional and psychological chips in on this. I'm all in on this. So when somebody says something like some authority figure or some other source or anybody says something different, I don't care. I'm all in on this. That doesn't bother me a bit. I am all in on this, and you cannot convince me outside of it. I don't care if what kind of evidence you bring, what kind of argument you have, what. I don't care. I am because here's the thing. I recognize in deep in my heart, this is what's true. There's nothing else that matters to me. It's this. So I have to be all. I'm emotional even talking about it because it's. I never knew this about myself. What was you know deep in my heart, the core of my heart, until Irene died. I mean, I believed I knew it before that, but I didn't. I didn't know it.
I know I always say that Paul's illness revealed even more love. I thought I loved him as much as one human being could love another. And we had such an easy, beautiful relationship. But when he became sick with a terminal cancer diagnosis, the love just, not only the love, but my attention was completely on him. And then when he died, it became even deeper and greater.
Yeah.
And so, uh, I don't want to say there was benefit in him dying, but certainly, uh, people always talk about gratitude, like they're grateful for this, that, and the other thing. And there's a difference between gratitude and appreciation. Gratitude I see as like you're happy for the happy things. It wasn't happy when Paul um, got cancer and suffered with that, and when he died, that wasn't happy. But I could appreciate what that did for us. And now that I'm on the other side of that grief, and it's only the joy and the love and the anticipation and the knowing that I think I don't know if you do this, William. I don't think we ever talked about this, but I think all the time about all the fun things I'm going to do with Paul, like that we didn't get to do here, like even like little things, and to replay things. I imagine like the one video that you did, and I told you that it was a recreation of a Valentine's Day dinner that Paul and I had. And that was like the most romantic dinner. But even with that, I think of other things I would do, in that same scene, like to make it even better. And that's, you can play around a lot in your own head with those things and your mind and heart. And it's so much fun to think of how you can even embellish the best of the best that you experienced here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the that's that's the most wonderful thing is that uh, somebody yesterday mentioned who is also one of my favorites, the astral projector, prolific astral projector Darius Wright, and the way that and you can also read this in Jürgen Zive's stuff too, but he gets off all this other spiritual stuff that I don't care for much, and maybe Darius does too. I just haven't listened to that much, but anyway, that is infinite. That the it's a limitless, infinite potential that you have waiting for you in the afterlife. And if you can imagine it, if you can think of it, you can have it and you can experience it, you and your partner. And to think of that as what Irene and I have available to us, uh, I don't know how you get any better than that. I mean, that's just it thrills me, it excites me, it makes me very enthusiastic. It wakes me up in the morning with joy in my heart, and it puts me to sleep with this big sloppy grin on my face. That I am lucky enough to have gone down this route and have found all this. It's just amazing.
And it's wonderful to share this with so many other people in our group who are in the same boat and, share all of their wonderful experiences and even the challenges that they have, because we know that down the road, the bumps in the road, they're going to get through that. And everybody gets to get, as you said, the romantic lottery. We all won the romantic lottery, the romance lottery.
Yep. Yes, we have. Okay. I believe we've covered 2 hours worth. I think that was great. I'm going to end the recording. Thanks everybody who was watching and
Thank
anybody
you.
who,
Thank you, William. Thank
yep.
you, Paul. Thank you, Irene,
Thank you, Paul and Irene.
and all the other partners who are here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody else, because I know they're contributing a lot and helping us along here.
Yes.
And
Thank you
we
so much.
really appreciate that. Okay. We really do. Okay. I'm ending this.